And when we last left our fearsome trio, they learned how to say, I had an appointment at the hairdresser's. Which if they ever get hair besides like these rectangles of color, they'll be all set. Okay. So how do you say like, I have a lot of things to do? Oh, that's like, tengo muchas cosas, many things. And then I always got to think, is it para hacer? It's que hacer, right? I was right. It's que hacer. So like, as you're learning the phrases, you're learning like which prepositions to use with them. Yeah, I can see it going with either way. I mean, like, cosas de hacer, cosas por hacer. But yeah, like it's que hacer. Okay, I'll go with that. Que hacer. Muchas cosas que hacer. It sounds funny. That's right. Okay, it just sounds funny.
Okay. I hope that you have a good trip. Or like if it's in brackets, you don't have to say it. So it's like, have a good trip. It would be like, 10, un buen viaje.
Yeah, but like, we're gonna use a subjunctive here. So what you say is like, que tenga un buen viaje. Or like if you're being informal, you say, que tengas un buen viaje. That's the subjunctive. That's for like the way that things ought to be. Like if you're describing like the ideal universe. Or some sort of hypothetical universe in which they have a good trip. Even though you know they won't. Because they overpaid for that cruise. And they're just going to be complaining the whole time. That's just how they are. But you still say it like that. Que tengas un buen viaje. Knowing full well they won't. That's life, man. Okay. My head hurts or my head aches using tener. What you say is, that you tener un dolor. Dolor is pain. So you say like, tengo dolor de cabeza. And of course the other way is to use the verb doler, which is related to dolor, and you'd be like, me duele la cabeza. To me it hurts the head. But this is how you do it with tener, and that's why you're here. Tener. That's kind of like a funny phrase in English, like he takes after his father. Like he takes macaroni after his father? He takes all of his floor mats out after his father? No, it's just like he takes after him. Takes what? But like, in Spanish you use tener. You say like, él tiene mucho de su padre. Like he has a lot of his father. And that makes more sense. I'm gonna start saying that instead. Like, you have a lot of your grandfather. That's what you have, a lot of your grandfather. I mean, like you say, you have your father's eyes, so why not say you have a lot of your father? I'm doing it. I'm gonna do it. Okay, yeah, you do that. No, I will.
Okay. Like, how do you say, like, there's nothing unusual about that? See, I would think, like, with I, I'd be like, no hay nada inusual sobre eso.
Yeah, but like, we're gonna do it with tener. Those are like, eso no tiene nada de extraño. That's how you say it. And it's like, that doesn't have nothing. And that's a double negative. That's how you do it in Spanish. Was gonna get to that. That does not have nothing or anything. And then of strangeness. Or of strange. Or of foreign. But like here it's strange. Like there's nothing strange about that. That's how you do it. Ooh, okay. Jealous. Like some of the emotions in Spanish are adjectives just like they are in English. Like, if you're happy, then you say like, estoy feliz. But a lot of times, like, they'll use a noun that you have instead of an adjective that you are. So instead of saying like, he is jealous, they'll say like, he has jealousy of Mary. Which I guess you could say in English, it just wouldn't sound as natural as saying, he is jealous of Mary. He has jealousy of Mary. Well, I guess you could say that. Okay, so like Pablo, or like in Portugal it'd be like Paulo, tiene celos de María. There you go. Pablo tiene celos de María. And then, like, that celos, I think is interesting because like it's related to jealous, but it's also related to like zealous, like full of fervor and energy. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Okay, well that's you.
burned.
Okay. I don't have anyone to turn to. I mean, again, like, turn to is an idiom, because, like, you're not actually going to turn to them, like, girar or, like, volver. So, like, in Spanish, they use recurrir, and that's, like, it's related to, like, a recourse, which is kind of like a resource. And what you say is, like, no tengo, no tengo a quien recurrir. We're, like, with the accent, even though it's not a question. So, like, watch out for that. But it's like, I don't have anybody to take recourse to, like, to turn to. And, like, those people that say, like, you shouldn't end a sentence in English with, a preposition like to. How are you going to say this? I don't have anyone to whom I can turn. Yeah, okay, that works. Sounds like a jerk, though. I don't have anyone to whom I can turn. Okay. We got more? Here. Okay. Why don't you take this one, because this is like an imperative. Like you were saying 10 before, Salad Boy.
Okay. It's like, have is like 10. And then you say, like, some is like algunos.
Yeah, but, like, you don't have to translate the some here. A lot of times, like, we just throw in a some that you don't have to translate.
Okay. 10 más, and then it's like respeto.
That's right. Like, I thought, like, maybe you would say, like, respecto, because, like, that's everybody does that sometimes. Like, if you know the word in English, you'll think that, like, the Spanish word is the same with just, like, a O. And a lot of times it is. But, like, if it isn't, you're like, watch out, because it's not respecto, it's respeto.
But it used to be respeto. Like, I bet you sound like all old-fashioned if you say respecto. I'm gonna say respecto. They'll think I'm from, like, olden times.
You're not from olden times. Okay. And then, like, the same way, like, if you want to tell somebody be careful, you actually tell them, like, have caution. So you just say, like, ten cuidado. That was, like, one of the first words I learned, because it was on our mop bucket. It was like, cuidado, piso mojado, which rhymes, which is cool. Okay. And then, like, here's a fun little, expression, to be in a bad mood. It's, what it literally means is, like, to have bad fleas. So you say, like, cuidado con Pablo. Like, caution with Pablo. And then you say, like, he has bad fleas. And that's how you say, like, somebody's in a bad mood. Which certainly makes sense, because, like, if they actually had fleas, they probably would be in a bad mood. I'm not disparaging people who have fleas, by the way. I don't mean to be a fleaist. Or a have-fleaist. Have-fleaist. And they lived have-fleaist ever after. Now you're rambling. Okay, well, I think... Okay, yeah, we got, like, 2 more here. How do you say, like, I feel like going for a walk in the country? Oh, yeah, that's like the tener ganas thing. You say, like, tengo ganas de... whatever you want to feel like doing. Tengo ganas de caminar por el campo. And I ask that same question again, like, if tener ganas means to feel like doing something, then what are ganas? They're what you have when you feel like doing something. Yeah, so I think of it like, ganas is like, an urge or a desire, or like, the itchins. You might say, like, the itchins. That way you'll remember that it uses tener. It'll say, like, I have the itchins of walking through the country. And that's how you say that. Okay. Okay. And then here's the kicker. Like, how do you say, like, have you eaten? I see what you're doing. Salad Boy?
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll fall into your little trap here. You say, like, have you, or like, you have is like tienes. And then, like, eaten is like comido.
Haha, I fooled you.
I was kind of, like, working with you here.
But yeah, I still fooled you. That counts. That totally counts. You don't use tener at all. You use haber. So you say, like, has comido. Which is just to remind you that, like, when we say, like, I have eaten, or he has eaten, or even, like, I had eaten, all of those in English use a have verb in some form. But in Spanish, you're going to use, like, the haber. So there you go. 20 fun ways to use tener. We'll see you next time.